Atlanta Falcons at the Tampa Bay Bucs. We're at the point in the season, Sam, where we have rematches.
Yeah.
A rematch from the Thursday night football game. Falcons walk off. Falcons are favored by 2.5 here in Tampa Bay. Got to think that line moved a little bit just based off of Monday night and the injuries that the Bucs faced with Mike Evans out at least a few weeks and Chris Godwin, of course, out for the season with the dislocated ankle.
Yeah, might not have moved with either one of them, but both of them at the same time, I think, probably makes a significant difference. I'm fascinated by, so the first matchup, Todd Bowles only blitzed Kirk Cousins 35% of the time. That's a pretty low figure for a Todd Bowles defense. In fact, that's like 20% or 20 percentage points lower than you would normally expect the Todd Bowles defense to blitz a quarterback. Normally, you would expect Bowles to just come after him almost regardless of who it is. I wonder, because at that point, Cousins was sort of looking fairly vulnerable, not quite working. The offense was sort of static and didn't have as many teeth. Like, did they just think that let's just play coverage, you can't make those throws anyway, and 500 yards later maybe there'll be a different approach this time?
I think part of it, though, if you remember the game weeks ago, Zach, our friend, was running tempo, right? He's running tempo on second down into third down. It was a very specific game plan.
But their default position is blitz.
But you can't set it up, is the point, right? So they were rushing the number of times that they ran tempo from after second down into third down. You can't set up an elaborate blitz scheme. You almost have to go static, cover 2, cover 3. You almost have to do that. So the Falcons were running hurry up, and they did it a couple times on third down into fourth down. And if you go back to that game as well, there was all sorts of Raheem Morris goes forward on fourth down, key decision that ends up leading to the win. There was all sorts of like individual plays that led to the Falcons getting that win. So I think that was part of it. The thing I can't remember if I mentioned before the game then, Sean McVay always had really good answers to Todd Bowles. And Zach is, one of Sean McVay's guys. We talk about this a lot. For some reason, the matchups in the NFL seem to matter. We talk a lot about the Shanahan scheme versus a Flores defense and other types of defenses. And does Ben Johnson have answers to the Flores defense? Well, historically, Sean McVay, when he's got the right players, has done a really good job against Todd Bowles. And so McVay and friends have done a nice job. So I think you kind of saw that in the last matchup. And I thought Zach had some really good answers to help take the Bucs out of some of that blitz scheme. But it's a good point by you, right? I mean, it was a different type of Bulls defense that they were facing.
Right. And I'm curious to see if they figure out a way of dialing it much higher to the usual Todd Bowles way to just come after Cousins. Because again, even though that offense is a lot better than it was earlier in the season, I mean, Cousins is still one of the least mobile quarterbacks in the NFL. He's a guy that you would expect generally that you want to come after with the blitz. Even though, he can beat it with his head, right? Beat it cerebrally.
So my question is going to be other side of the ball, of course. What's Tampa going to do offensively? I think Baker Mayfield, we saw the various range of outcomes with him the other day. He's cooking, he throws the ball to the defense in the end zone, right? And some of the inconsistency with him. But with Baker, I feel a lot like what I've said about Geno Smith the last couple of years. Isn't there this element of, because Baker Mayfield was so inconsistent for much of his career, and because Geno Smith was a backup for so much of his career, you're almost like waiting, like, is it ever going to run out? What we're saying with Darnold, right? Is it ever going to run out? Is he ever going to revert back? And I think Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith have both done a really good job of, when it feels like, is this the mistake that we've been waiting for? Is this the bad game that we've been waiting for? They can't keep this going. They always seem to bounce back. I think they've done a really good job of mentally bouncing back from mistakes. And so, I think Mayfield's been impressive through that regard. Now there's more pressure on him. No Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin. But the Bucs have a good running game for the first time in years. And so now, how does this work here? They got the three-headed monster at running back. They're moving the ball on the ground. Again, better than they have in a long time in Tampa Bay. Do they start to rely on that more? Or is it Baker Mayfield getting the rookie Jalen McMillan more involved, his old friend Sterling Shepard, Trey Palmer? Going to be interesting to see how Tampa Bay attacks this without Evans and Godwin.
And that was a bad game from him against the Ravens. I mean, the numbers volume-wise are going to look crazy, like 370 yards, high yards per attempt. He had touchdowns, but 5 turnover-worthy plays.
Yeah, and some of those,
multiple which were bad decisions.
Some of those are unforced. early, and then other ones it's like, okay, you're down by 3 scores and you have to, whatever. But all I'm saying is he's generally been able to bounce back from those things, right, over the last couple of years. But you don't have Evans and Godwin to bounce back with you.
You don't agree.
React.
I agree. You don't.
How will Tampa Bay? How are they going to work offensively here against? And I'm obligated. Where do they rank now? Obligated to trash the Falcons pass rush every single week. Second worst in the NFL now per PFF. The Panthers have a 47 PFF pass rush grade. 47.
Yikes.
Falcons are second at 55. So the difference between the Panthers and second is about 7 points of grading points in pass rush. That's the same difference as the Falcons and the 8th best team. So the Panthers are just in their own world of poor pass rush.
So obviously, when you're talking about the pass game, the two ways of impacting it are the protection and the coverage, or the protection of the receivers rather, and then the coverage and the pass rush on the defensive side. So Tampa Bay, absolute body blow, losing their top 2 wide receivers. All of a sudden, that receiving core as a general looks rough. But helping that will be Baker should have time to throw. Like, he should have the ability to go through his progression because the Falcons do not get pressure. And, Tampa Bay's offensive line, when it's healthy, is a pretty good unit. So at least he's got that working for him that, okay, we might have to try and make some things happen with these receivers, but he should have the time to do that.
All right, man, 2.5. Over under at 45.5 from our friends over at FanDuel. I think that's an interesting number given it was an offensive, explosion in the last matchup, but you're losing those pieces for the Bucs. It's in Tampa Bay this time, Sunday at 1. Where are you going to go with this one?
I'm going to go with the Falcons. Don't love it, but that's where I'm leaning.
Yeah, I'll take the Falcons as well. Harry is also going to take the Falcons. Again, I think there's some of that. It's tough to beat a team twice. Is it tough to beat a team twice or only 3 times?
I think it's only 3.
It's actually not mathematically true, though, right?
I don't know, is it?
No, I don't think so at all. But yeah, I think I'm going to lean on the matchup that I think Atlanta's offense against the Bucs defense will have some success here. So give me the Falcons. All 3 of us taking the Falcons.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.